Okay, good afternoon, good morning. How are we? What a day. What a nice time. I'm on nights this week, so I can actually watch the videos for once. Welcome, Stuart. Good to see you, my man. Good evening. United has made you insecure. I understand. I love you. Welcome, welcome. Oh, I'll be here. I'm just doing a little, I'll do a little, oh yeah, I'm definitely buzzing. Just wanted to look at this a little bit longer for a minute. This has been, this is an excellent thing. Nice beard. Yes, yes, yes. I just wanted to look at this a little longer. When I do switch it to the face camera, you'll see the shockingness that is my facial hair at the moment. It's November, right? It's November, so it's November, and and I've heard some fun comments about my facial hair. So I thought, why don't we lean into it and just make it awful? So when I shaved this morning, my 5-year-old walks in, who was like, and he was just like, he just goes, "That looks horrible." So yeah, but it's November, so you know what you should be able to expect, and I'll keep it as long as I can. Kevin O'Doherty, welcome to the Pro Muppet. Thank you for joining. All right, let's get into it. So it's Mustache O'Clock. It's the awful, awful Mustache O'Clock, and we're gonna keep this for as many days as we can stand to look at it and grow it out, because it is awful. It is absolutely horrible. But people didn't like my facial hair before, okay? So now you get to see the worst mustache known to man, and enjoy that. Good luck to you. It's a good cause. It's fine. No, it's all right. It's gonna have some. You like it? What do you think? Good? Terrible? Let's poll it. Let's start off with a poll. You know how we love our polls. Mustache. Like it? Hate it? What the fuck? Let's do that. Nice. Let's start off with a nice little poll here. Is this the start of your OnlyFans? Love it option? Okay. Ooh. The Tom Selleck Hawaii 5-0. Yeah, I love it. It's turning. Yeah, we're gonna do a watch along for Sporting's game this evening. We will look like a character from Bonnie and Clyde. Yeah, it's very old fashioned. It looks very old fashioned. I'm gonna keep it for as many days as I can stand it. As many days as I can stand it, or my wife can stand it. I will keep it as many days as me or my wife can stand it, and it'll grow. It gets really thick. I mean, my mustache, I can't grow my hair well here. It's very patchy, but my mustache will grow in incredibly thick, and we'll leave it at that. So till tomorrow, yeah. Honestly, I might shave it like midstream if I had a razor here. Shave it for Amorim's first loss. It's staying forever. Brilliant, brilliant. Anyway, yeah. So how are we doing today? United just love to do these announcements early in the morning. So I wake up like 6 a.m. and my phone is just like buzzing with all sorts of things like, oh, this is about to happen, this announcement is about to occur, all that. And not only that, but last night was Halloween, and so I was up quite late We were out till I was out with taking my son trick or treating till like, for him, like out till 9:30. So when you're out all night, then you've got to, it takes a long time to settle in. So I was up late, all that. Diet red. Oh, good God, I don't think I would do that. I still have an actual job, not that I have to show my face too often. We'll talk about Rude. Irresponsible for me to get sleep. I know. It's not okay. It is truly not okay. Truly not okay. All right, let's end the poll there. Like it won, technically. Like it won 48%. So thank you. Thank you. My wife was like, why don't you do like a live stream and do something where, but I haven't figured this out, so please don't do this yet. Why don't I do through the whole month of November where if people donate specifically for it, then I keep the mustache as long as we get donations each live stream for it. And then I accumulate all of it. And then at the end of the month, we do a donation for whatever the exact cause is, men's prostate health, men's cancer, whatever. I'll find a foundation. Not now, but you said it would be a good idea. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to do it. We've never done something like that and with our videos or community, so that would be fun. Do like a big community thing and a big donation at the end of the month if we can. And at least that would play into the reason to keep the mustache for the whole month as well. So yeah, that would be an idea. So anyway, I'll figure that out, and maybe next week we'll actually do that, and I'll have a foundation or something set up. Figure out who to do it all to, and we can figure it out. Donate it to Ten Hag. I could donate my hair to Ten Hag, but no. Anyway, is the Amorim appointment less than the need for a left back immediately? No, let's get into all of this, okay? Let's get into all of this. We're gonna talk about a few things. We'll talk about. I want to first go through, obviously the appointment. Talk about the head coaching thing. Talk about what else do I want to talk about? The head coaching aspect of this versus a manager. And then we'll talk about his lineup and his thing. I did a couple videos this week. Carl Anka also did a really good article that I think is quite accurate. I actually think there's a number of people who have got it right. There's a few that have kept saying things like, that the squad doesn't fit Ruben Amorim, or they're not sure how. But there's a number of people who are able to see what I see, people that I think have really got it right in pointing out the type of squad that we have and how it fits him, because I actually think it fits extremely well. Will he have a veto? Probably, I don't believe so, as he's got just a head coaching role. Interested to see if Rude will stay. So he's going to speak with Sports Fan. It would be great to fundraise for men's health. My prostate cancer was found completely by accident 6 years ago. So hope guys on here make sure to take care of health. Exactly, and that's obviously the original idea behind the no shave thing. So I'll figure it out. I've never done anything like it before, so it might be a little scuffed, but I'll figure out a way to do something where as a community we can come together and maybe do a donation by the end of the month and at least make it worth me sporting this mustache all month if we do so. And congratulations on I assume that you're okay now, but because you're still with us, so congratulations on that. I think Rude is going to speak with Ruben. He will speak with him. That has been the plan. Is that he will speak with the new coach now that he's appointed. He said in his press conference yesterday. Now here's the interesting part that I want to think about. Yesterday, he was asked in his press conference if he was going to speak with Ruben and set up the team in the days or games to come, given the new coach coming in, start setting up the team for him. And obviously he said, well, has he been announced yet? He hasn't been announced. And why he wouldn't speak with someone who's not announced. Well, Now he is announced. Okay. Now he is announced. So ideally, we may have a scenario here where even over the next few games, Van Nistelrooy could start setting up the team for him. Why would, I'm not saying he will, because he's got to look at the team himself and say, what is my best bet for getting United to win each game? But technically, he could. Technically, he could. So maybe he will. We will see. And maybe he will. I don't know, but that would make it kind of interesting to see the team if we want to see it in the vision of the coach. But he wants to talk to Ruben, so I assume that they will have some conversations, even obviously before the 11th when he actually officially arrives, that they will have some conversations. Way back when Ten Hag was appointed originally, it was obviously in the middle of the season, and he had some discussions with you like it, Steve? He had some discussions. He had regular discussions with the club over a lot of different plans. I don't think it was anything about picking the team, but he was evaluating players, doing all sorts of stuff like that. Not that it really helped in the end, but regardless, you never know, like with a new coach coming in, what it might look like. So, yeah. James, one of the first things he needs to do is sit down and learn United's history and community. I'm sure he's aware of it. Now, one of the things that I would point out specifically about Amorim that is a little bit, to me, like a nice romanticism of things and nostalgia of things is that, he was born within 7 days of Cristiano Ronaldo. He's the same age as him. I think he's 7 days older, 7 days younger. And so he would have been playing in Portugal as Ronaldo made his move to United and inspired so many Portuguese players and culture there in becoming a great at United, this young kid from Sporting, right? So I would strongly suggest that he's well aware of the history of United, well in touch with it, and has huge admiration for it and everything that's involved with that. And I think that'd be great. I also do think there's a benefit to Van Nistelrooy staying on and Van Nistelrooy staying on and being able to then help him in like connecting with the fans, things like that. Not that I think he'll have a problem with it, because he's a very charismatic, very different person. Is it a concern that he left Braga and Sporting mid-season? What if we're doing well and say Real Madrid taps him up? Well, I'm not particularly worried about that. I think Manchester United is the top of the mountain. And I think for most people, it's the top of the mountain. And you don't leave mid-season. That being said, too, I don't think it's normal. It would be normal behavior of Madrid to go and try and get a manager from a big club mid-season. I'm not sure they've ever done that. I'm not concerned about that. Look, Braga, he was there for 13 games. He wasn't exactly there for a long, long time. And then they brought him up. Regardless, very exciting time. So yeah, let's get into a few things. I wanna talk it through. First, I definitely want to talk about. Yeah, exactly. We should be top of the mountain. Talk about this view of the long term. If you've been watching the videos for a long time, since last year, since before INEOS got in, you'll know, this is a big part of this, is that, INEOS' view of the long-term manager for United at the time said whether it's Ten Hag or not is not how many trophies they've won, but based on who will be an effective communicator, this is from May 8th, and coach to build the foundations on the basis of the direction they want the club to go in. This is the first time I've shared this view. I've been speaking about it since last year. A head coach position focused on effective communication and coaching in line with a style or game model from a top-down view. That's the job. And, I mean, as we can see, that's what they've done. That's what they've done, right? Word for word. That is what they have actually accomplished now. A top-down view with a head coach position focused on effective communication and coaching in line with the style that they've selected. Word for word, exactly what they've now done. And I think the first time I brought that up was back in November last year, saying their view of this head coaching job is very different. Their view of this manager job is very different than how it's been. And I even recommended to Ten Hag, I said, if you wanted to stick around, the best thing he could do is accept the more limited, maybe focused, one could call it if they wanted to say it positively, scope that this new role is going to have. And so, that's where we've gone, and that's what they've done now with this appointment. And obviously that's exactly what they've appointed. They've picked someone on that exact basis, a head coach who is a strong communicator and is focused on coaching in line with their game model. Now, yes, Gontar, I am, and when you look at the people that they looked at, right, or that were considered strongly by Dan Ashworth and co, per my information. This is my own information. There's some corroboration. I don't really care if there is. I'm quite happy with it. I'm quite confident in it anyways, given everything that I know from an INEOS side of things. A lot of their top choices for managers going into summer, Xabi Alonso, Julian Nagelsmann, and then you also look at Thomas Tuchel. Well, what can all of them do? I'm not saying it's 100% the back three thing, because a back three on its own is not a system or a style, right? But there's an obvious admiration by Dan Ashworth for this back three thing, even his connection to Gareth Southgate, appointment of Graham Potter. These are all managers who played in a sense a semi-similar system to each other. You could say that Amorim, Xabi Alonso are quite similar in a lot of ways when you watch them. Amorim's is maybe a little more vertical, a little more direct, but they both do a lot of the same things, a lot of the same ideas, and it seems to be a wave in attacking. And if there was some truth in looking at, Inzaghi and such, then, there's that as well. But with Alonso being someone that City are after and will probably go to Madrid, and they've known that for some time now. And, and Nagelsmann's committed to Germany. Amorim is right in that bracket with them of the type and the style. So they've appointed somebody who is very, very much in line with their overall idea of a coach. And again, that's why I said, regardless of everything, it's sort of doomed to failure with Ten Hag when they kept him over summer, because really, really simply, it was always doomed. And that's why it was such a pointless exercise in some respect. And it was a mistake by them. It was totally a mistake by them. And as I said many times, for me, it wasn't really so much about Ten Hag as his abilities or coaching or results or anything like that. He wasn't their guy. He wasn't their guy. He wasn't their guy at all. He was the complete opposite of their guy, right? When you look at their values, a head coach who coaches in line with a club style and an effective communicator, it's quite the opposite. It was doomed in that respect because he was not their guy. He didn't fit their job description. He didn't fit their view of the role at all. So it was pointless in that respect, and there was never any doubt, unfortunately, that it would fail. And it's been difficult. I mean, the last 2 months, all I've been hearing from them is like, even when I was saying they want more time, they're going to give him more time, etc. From the start of the season, from one side of things, I'd always been hearing like, he's not going to be here next year no matter what. And it was like, God, what was the point of all this? What a waste of time. And I didn't want to say that every day. Oh, by the way, Ten Hag's basically already an interim manager, but he was an interim manager the whole season. They were always going to replace him, barring some complete title charge type of thing, because he wasn't their guy. And so it was a little bit of a waste of time. But they made that mistake. They didn't have Barada in the door. They didn't have Ashworth in the door. And now they do. They've corrected the error. They've corrected about as fast as possible, in my perspective. Who would be your first ideal signing to suit the system? We could talk about that. But at the end of the day, it's not their guy, and that's why I wasn't not always trying to be inflammatory about the manager himself, but just the concept in general. Um, United don't have a style, Danny. That's the thing that's important. We don't have a style. And one of the biggest, I think, lies, not lies, but maybe misconceptions or things that we kept trying to push is United DNA. What is it? You could say it's wingers, but we played with two strikers for years on top of that. So is it two strikers? Is it, two strikers playing off of each other? Is it wingers like, Giggs? Is it guys like Wayne Rooney? Is it, what is it? I think at the end of the day, the only true thing United DNA can be put down to that we wanted to keep was to attack, was to be an attacking team, That is about it. We want to entertain, right? It's about the intent to win and entertain and to never give up attitude. That you can keep. That should be there, but it's to entertain. I don't think that people would accept. I don't think that people would accept. Like Louis van Gaal. When I did a video yesterday talking about Louis van Gaal. I always say Louis, but I did a video yesterday talking about was it yesterday? No, it was a few days ago talking about why managers have failed. And I thought that Louis van Gaal was building had a good project, but one of the biggest problems with it was his style of play. I don't think would have been tolerated by United fans. And there is an aspect of that that's true. We won't have that problem with Ruben Amorim. His style of play is still extremely aggressive. It's why for a long time I said it's really unfortunate we didn't get Jurgen Klopp, because he also, if you want to talk about United DNA, I mean, the Liverpool managed to pull it off, sadly, and we didn't have it. Being strong, being attacking while winning, and being entertaining and being successful. So, that's the DNA that counts, right? At the end of the day. And so now, essentially they've completed this new structure here with Jim Ratcliffe, Jean-Claude Blanc, Dave Brailsford, Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox, Christopher Vivell, and your new head coach in Ruben Amorim. And really, the overhaul is effectively complete now. It's all new. And you have in this successful football people in every position who are there to make real decisions. And that is a far cry from what we have seen in the past. Far cry from what we've seen in the past. So it's just an excellent time, and they've really pulled this off. And so now I believe that, without a manager being too interfering in the recruitment and all of these things, they can really do it right. Someone asked about things like touchline demeanor and all of that. Well, big reason for Amorim being appointed is certainly his communication skills, not just, in the dressing room, but with the press. He deals with the press extremely well. He's very jovial. He's always very easy to talk to. He answers pretty much every question they want and will actually answer them and give details in many instances when he can. He tends to respond well to them and doesn't tend to make enemies of the press either, which will help take some of the pressure off of him. He's extremely active on the touchline throughout the game. Extremely active. Always talking, always instructing, always moving. So he's definitely not like an iPad guy, which I've had beef with Ten Hag. I've had beef with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer about that, not being an iPad guy. So, I think that's a good thing. I'm not a huge fan of that. So, he's a young coach. I believe he does take his own sessions. We'll find out shortly a little bit how he does it, but he's very, yeah. So look, I want to talk about his team. I did a video about how it might fit. I posted something earlier on. There's a good article here from Carl Anka as well at The Athletic. And I note this and I wanted to show it because I think it's worth a read, because a lot of it reflects exactly the way that I've explained and seen Amorim tactics as well. So I think, he has it hand in hand, and we'll build out. I want to then build out how I expect he would play. So, looking at this, like this is from Karolinko's article, what he figures is our option 1. And I agree with this pretty much explicitly if we are healthy. It's the exact team that I posted a few days ago, 3 days ago, under one of the early videos about how you do it. And this is exactly how I see the team when fit. Now, if Shaw's ever fit, obviously this is a big question mark. We all know it. That's fine. But he would actually fit this quite well. A few of the rotations that Amorim often does is converting fullbacks into center backs, converting fullbacks into center backs, and also converting wingers into fullbacks or wingbacks in his system. That happens a lot, where you get rotations where, in certain games, you will have a fullback that moves into this. And you could see Dalot here and Mazraoui here, or Mazraoui here and Dalot here. You can see things like that. There's always going to be little rotations between these positions, as well as these positions. So you can almost look at like this 3 as being a little bit of an interesting setup, where this player can slide here, this player can slide here, and vice versa. You have at times left center backs he puts at left back, depending on the matchup that he's facing, depending on the strength of the team. But one of the things that people I strongly see that people aren't getting, and I can honestly say that I've watched more Amorim than probably 99.9% of chat, of United fans, of United media, of Twitter tacticos and whatever, is that this complete misconception. This idea that those forwards are all attacking midfielders is wrong. I'm just telling you, it's wrong. It's very flexible, very fluid. They're very different types of players that play in those positions. And more often than not, they're inside forwards. And more often than not, his wing backs are traditional wingers. That is actually more often than not how he plays and how he attacks. Very, very often his wing backs are quite literally traditional wingers in their position, in what they play and what they do. It's very, very flexible in that. I said Amorim wasn't the top choice. I've addressed that at least 3 or 4 times, and I completely stand by that. He was not technically the top choice overall, but among the attainable, I would say that he rose up that list by saying yes. So if you look at here, I'll try to pull these up. I'm trying to find a different game, and then I will show a good example of this. Like when they play Benfica, for example, or Porto. Let's try that. Oh, here we go. Let's see what this is. About the same lineup as before. But then I'll get it. Just give me a minute here. Hold on. I'm just finding one from last year, because there's a specific thing that he's done at certain times depending on the matchups. Yeah, here we go. Why did they only give him a 2.5-year deal? He's got a +1 on it. Yeah. Yeah. The wingers are it depends. It's really depending. So that's why I think there's real shot to see Garnacho at left wing back so much better in space, and Rashford. And I completely agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's yeah. Why did they only give it a 2.5-year deal? So if you look at the project overall, we have this. Well, it was either 2.5 or 3.5, right? But then it's +1, so technically it can be a 3.5. But what it means is we get this whole season. He gets a full season with a transfer window, with all of that. By the end of that year, they'll want to be able to tell that we're progressing and in the right format. Then they can easily agree a new contract at this time. I think this will be normal in general, right? It's not so much that we want to only have a short-term managers, but in general, we don't want to. Is my mic volume down? Let me check. Maybe sometimes it like I've said before, sometimes it randomly moves down here. I can kick it back up a little bit. But you know, they want to see things work, right? It's also part of moving past this manager focused model, right? Where it's all about the manager, and that if it doesn't work in 2 years, it's easy to move on to the next one and transition without it costing loads and loads of money. Much better. Okay, appreciate it. Yeah, but you can watch, you know, I mean, so there's different games that we can look at, for example, like last year, you know. So this is what he was doing somewhat of last year, you know, at times. Nuno Santos is a winger, you know, and he's done this a lot this year too. So, you know, you go with winger in this left wing back position. Paulinho plays as has also played as a striker for him, I believe. He's very much an insided forward. Trincao tends to dribble and float around quite a bit. Yeah, there's a lot of balance with all of this, and it really does depend on the matchup, right? If he's playing in a smaller game, he'll be more likely to deploy. Again, you know, Araujo here, and then Harder was set up as the striker, and he shifted into this position in the second half. When, like in this game specifically, when Gyökeres came on, he shifted more into a left inside role from the striker. So he often uses two of his forwards as more of, sometimes as a pair. And you can even see this when you look at the average positions, 19 and 20, right? This is Araujo and Harder. They're kind of a pair. And then his other 10, in this case, Marcus Edwards and then Trincao, kind of floats around a little bit more into different positions. And then look at how high and wide these fullbacks are. Look at where Fresneda's average position is as a wingback. This is as high as it can get, right? This is as high as it can get for you know, a fullback. So, and then you have 5 players behind them. So this is not a defensive position in many games. That's why I say when people look at it and they're like, "Oh my God, you're going to put like." If you suggest a Garnacho here, you know, like why, you know, like it's an insult or he's punished or he's not being used. Not at all. This is like Garnacho's best position. For me, this is where he does the most damage. Wide in spaces against fullbacks, one-on-one, where he can run and make something happen. And then inside of him, having a forward. You see this combo? Like imagine this is Rashford and Garnacho combining on that side against fullbacks and against central defenders. That to me is fantastic. That to me is a huge, that would be absolutely impossible to defend against when you think about it, and then having your striker just inside of them. Rashford's poor in wide areas, you know? Rashford is poor in wide areas to me. Like when he's set wide, that's not where he's good. And it's the same on this side. Now, this player is a little bit more of a drifter, as you can see, and does play like a little bit more of a traditional 10 at times. There's different profiles for it, but to me, it depends on the matchup whether you'd want to have inside of him Bruno or Ahmad in that position. That type stylistically, they both can fit it in different ways. I would say that Ahmad plays a little more similar to Trincao and as a drifting like winger with his a little bit more agile, a little quicker pace, things like that. But certainly, you know, Bruno can fit that role as well. And then you could switch sides too. You know, you could do the same thing on the other side. You could even play, you know, Xerxes and Højlund with somebody in here. There's a lot of different ways that this could work with these forwards. And so I don't think it's like impossible. I'm not saying Garnacho can't play as an inside forward either. I'm just saying I think he has the flexibility where he could play as one of these outside wing backs as well, quite successfully, in the way that he's done with Nuno Santos, the way that he's done with Cuenda. These are positions that I think he could definitely work in. Let me see here. I just want to look at a couple other games. So like against PSV, maybe let's check that one really quick. I know something. Yeah. Only thing I can see being a problem with that is Garnacho would have to work extremely hard and give the ball away. Hope he's up for it. Yeah, and look, it depends on the matchup, and it also depends on what you do on either side. Do you find it difficult answering questions from guys named? A little bit. It's okay though. So yeah, there's a lot of ways that this could work. There's a lot of ways. Let's take a look at it. Let's build it out a little bit, because like I said, I can see a lot of different permutations for this. I think in these positions, for example, you've got Lissandro or Harry Maguire could be here, or Luke Shaw, if he ever comes back, would fit in this position. In this position, clearly De Ligt makes a lot of sense. Harry Maguire also makes a lot of sense. In this position, Lenny Yoro makes a lot of sense because he's a good channel defender, space defender, but you also could play a fullback converted into that position. He's done that at times as well. Into there. On this side, Dalot or Mazraoui, depending. I think that Mazraoui is better because this player stays so high and wide. And I think that we'll very often, sometimes he'll play pretty strong and go with two full wingers like Cuenda and Santos. He'll play both of them on either side as the wing backs, which is very attacking, right? But I doubt we'll do that as much. So I think very often we could see, a fullback and more of a winger on either side. So like we could see this. I do actually think we could see this. But let's look at another possibility that could be done here. You could go with something like, if fit, right? You could go with something like this and go with something like this here. And I think you could do things like this too, where there's a balance. But I think people have to stop looking at left wing backs the way that they may have, looking at wing backs the way that they have before. I do. People really do not. I think people are completely confused on what a wingback is in his system, in his modern day. When we watched Nacional, the game earlier this week, and we'll watch today in it, if you want to join, you will see. Yeah, my concern with Ahmad is the speed. That's why I think Garnacho can do it. He's fast as hell. And it's also why I don't think Antony's a good choice for it. He's not fast. He's relatively slow over distances. Garnacho is fast. That's why I think he's actually the only winger who can fit that role at United right now, because he's the only one who is actually fast enough to do it. In an old 4-4-2, it's not that different. That left mid, right mid versus a wingback in the system. It's really not that different at all. Because if you look at how it can shift out of possession, it'll shift even. There's times when it defends like this, and it's basically a 4-4-2. And that person is just in that positional system. So I think people get too caught up on these positions because in game, most teams build up in a 3-2-5 anyway. What's the difference? Look, it's a 3-2-5. It's the same thing. There's really no difference at all. It can be depending on the matchup. So I think there's a lot of flexibility in these positions. Yeah, Antony's quick and in his first step, and then he's actually not fast at all, especially because he can't dribble with pace. That's the other thing too. He can't dribble quickly. I think this is about as obvious as it gets. This Ugarte Menu pairing. That being said, I think Mount has a really interesting shout for this. Now I'm gonna put these ones in place so I can start to move everybody around. I think this is the best position, the most nailed on one on the entire pitch is probably right here, long term, because Rasmus Højlund is that guy. And then Bruno can fill into that sort of central 10 thing. Yeah, but defending is different, and that's why I say, what is defending? You know, what is defending? How do you defend? And this is one of the differences as well. How do you defend? How does Amorim's teams defend? I know, you know, versus how we defended under Ten Hag and under others, right? How do they defend? Okay, I'll show you in a minute, and why I'm really not worried about it at all. Unfortunately, like, we have a few players who are injured that would be really good fits. Bruno can very much fit into like the floating 10 role. He can. It's a decision, right? It's a decision for Amorim, and that's why I put a question mark here, because either Bruno or Ahmad is the right player for that position. And it just depends how he sees that role in this team. You know, it depends. A lot of times they float pairing together when you watch them, like I showed on some of the other games. He always has two forwards that kind of go together and one who's floating more often. And this makes a lot of sense. So you can have different matchups in all of this. But very often you have two that kind of go together in narrow formations up there. But the other aspect is when he builds up into the opposition half, you know, people have expressed concerns about this 3-1-6 thing, right? Because this is what happens. It gets very attacking. One of these midfielders comes and joins the attack, and it becomes a 3-1-6. But this really only happens once you guys once his team enters into the final third, enters into the other part of the attack. That's where he tends to do it. And this player has this ability to dart off very often into these spaces in between the forward and the fullback, where the fullback overlaps, passes it in, passes it to another person, you know, and gets some cutbacks. And they score a lot of goals this way. And so this individual, Mason Mount, is like the perfect player for it if he could ever stay healthy. It's like the perfect player for it if he could ever stay healthy, but so is Kobbie Mainoo. Kobbie Mainoo would be incredible because he can be kind of a playmaker. Now, you remember the goal that was scored in the FA Cup final, ironically, by Kobbie Mainoo? That move is really similar to moves you'll see from Amorim. A big switch to one side, a cut back into a runner, and even another cut back after that to getting a goal. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. What, is he just trolling? Okay. All right. So yeah, anyway, that's dealt with that. So that's something. So, you know, I think Mason Mount but even Casemiro, you look at him in his new, like, you know, uncle free man roaming around causing problems role. He could play really well next to Ugarte as well, and do what he's been doing in you know, in some recent games, attacking well, getting forward, having chaos, you know, all of that. I think that you know, it fits a lot of players, these things. So I think there's so many variants where it can help free up players. So, you know, I think you could see a lot of things, but let's talk about defending. Let's talk about defending, okay? Let's talk about defending, because I understand the concerns. You're talking about defense, okay? And this is why where I don't really have the same kind of concerns. Let's say we went with, like, oops, caps lock. Let's say we went with about as attacking a lineup as could be, okay? Here's how I got to make these when I do this on the watch alongs. It's easier to make these smaller, obviously, so I can show this. But the way that we defend under Ten Hag has been essentially a really high, really spread out press where the fullbacks stay deep, okay? And it's a back four. But it's really high, and the fullbacks are generally sitting back in the back line. They rarely follow the press up. It's really high and it's really wide. So you get, when it gets beat and the striker's pressing the keeper, there's a lot of spaces here. So then what happens is you end up needing a winger running all the way back all the time to catch it, to carry it, to block it off. I'm just going to tell you the difference in Amorim's philosophy. And it's one of the changes he's made this year that has made it even more compact and why defensively it's improved. There's no wide press. Okay? There is no wide press. These three players press extremely narrow. Okay? And the striker drops back deep in here. Rather than pressing the keeper, they often drop back even further than these two in the press to block off the middle. Amorim's philosophy is you can have the ball here. Jose Mourinho actually had a pretty similar philosophy, and that's why I say he's not dissimilar to Jose Mourinho in some of his traits as a coach. He's okay with them having the ball in these areas. He really doesn't mind. Okay, so he doesn't need his fullbacks to be constantly chasing all the way back here. Okay, they'll stay high and they'll come narrow very often. If the ball gets into the middle, everybody's job is just surround the middle. You can watch it. It was so interesting to watch it in the game the other day. They all get extremely, extremely narrow. The distances that they have to run up front are far less. That's why I say Rashford can do it. Because instead of running all the way out here, even if you don't have the fastest, most intense pressers, the distances are smaller. And correct, our press right now is very reactive because it's all about trying to catch them out to create an attack. Amorim's is not. And in fact, his press this year is a little more... is actually less than it has been in recent years because it's pressed down the middle, and if they beat your press, you just drop off. You just drop off. Once they get the ball over here, then they'll push up like this and trap them on this side, okay? They will trap them on a side, and then they will all kind of twist as a way to just keep them on a side. And then if they have to go back and around, then they'll do the same thing on the other side. And once they allow them on that side, that midfielder will push out. The biggest distances and the most energy has to come from these two midfielders. They have to be, and especially going side to side, they have to, once the ball gets out here, they'll go and trap it with the fullback and with this inside forward coming to make a trap. They set a lot of traps out wide, but they tend to drop off if that first press isn't beaten. It does get beaten rather into a bit of a deeper position. So, in a lot of ways, it ends up being something like this in when the press gets beaten, and then it becomes quite defensive. These wingbacks are, from my money, when I watch them, the reason why you can do it with wingers, there's no doubt they have to track back, okay? But because you're playing three center backs, first of all, you have an extra defender behind them versus just a regular fullback. You have an extra defender behind them at all times versus a regular fullback. You have this deep midfielder who always stays home. And when you watch them play, when they lose the ball, this player can step out very often as needed to cover behind the fullback. We did that for a while, like when we have Fred, for example. He would get behind the fullbacks when they would go forwards to make cover for them. And that was even in a back four. I don't think the reason he can do it with wingers is just because it's the Portuguese league. You can see, like Conte, there's been back threes in the Premier League before. It's not just that issue. He does sometimes. No, look, he plays inverted wingbacks as well at times. The other factor that is this thing about the height in the midfield as well. That is again helped. The center back in many instances will step up as almost a deep midfielder, especially for when players, if you're trying to play direct. So you're going to have De Ligt or Maguire stepping up into the midfield and winning those high balls, right? Challenging for those aerial duels, which we saw at times that Maguire's very good at. And that's why I think he has a place in this team, as is De Ligt as well. So there's a lot of things in this system that actually fit our team quite well. Yeah, it's exactly that, Michael. I think that this formation can benefit our players and mask a lot of weaknesses. It really can. It really can. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. I'm not saying there's not going to be transitions in this issue. I'm not saying that it's not going to take time to bed it into place. But this was chosen for a reason. The levels between the PL and the Portuguese league is huge. Bigger than the championship, the PL. Well, no, that's not true. The Portuguese league has a higher level than the championship. Stylistically, they're not that different, but while it is true that the levels between them are different, the opposition's quality is different, so is the quality of the team, right? So is the quality of the players that you have in here, okay? So is the quality of all of these players, you know? All of these players are better than what he has in Portugal. So the team's quality upgrades too. They're going to be faster, they're going to be quicker, they're going to be more physical. For example, let's take Yeoman, right? I quite like Yeoman as a 6. Ugarte is better than him. He can cover ground more. Yeoman can be extremely slow at times. He looks like he's moving in slow motion sometimes, even in the Portuguese league. Ugarte, we can see now from a few games, is not actually slow. He's actually quite quick. He's not the fastest player on earth, but he's quick. Kabi Menu is quicker than his midfielders in that he has right now. Casemiro is as well. So the quality of your team upgrades. When I look at this, I see a lot of potential, but when I look at what we would need the most, I have some concerns here based on pace, right? Because there are. I mean, the ironic thing about all of this, right, is that Porto just ripped us apart, you know? So I don't know. Maybe the quality isn't that different. But Porto just ripped us apart with this pairing, okay? Now you have an extra center back in this system. You know, when you're going up against fast forwards like Amorim, who ripped us apart, I still think we need another left center back here. Inacio is a good player. He's very similar to a tall Lissandro. United have liked him for some time. But Braithwaite, I think, makes more sense because he's taller, faster, more physical, and can defend in the channels. That being said, the downside with Braithwaite is he's not as good as a passer. And Amorim likes his wide center backs to be better passers. Now, Braithwaite could develop into that, but Inacio is a much, much better passer. As like was Pau Torres, similar vein, as is Lisandro Martinez. So I think that's maybe the weakness in Braithwaite is that his passing from this position isn't usually as good as he would want for that. And so I'm curious to see if we do go back for him, because that is a weakness. Physically, defensively, Braithwaite fits and would be excellent. Lenny Yoro, why he's such an incredible talent, is he's also a great passer, and you can see it. He can do practically everyone, and he can be practically everything for these positions. Maguire could do well in this role because he's a good passer too. He's physical, but he has the same problem with Martinez in that in space defending and channels, he's not as good. So I have some concerns there. That is one thing where I think we could do maybe better. They've been doing it with Inacio, but yeah, they've been doing it with Inacio, but I have some concerns there. I think Maguire suits the central position, stepping up as a central center back better, but I can see a few different views. There. So yeah, it is different. I think we've got a number of good players for here. I think this is a position of question, right? This is a position of question. Is that, like, if you look at, like, Etsy, right? Eze, he fits here really well. Makes sense why we'd be interested in signing him. If you look at, like, Chris Rigg or Hayden Hackney, I think they fit into some of these this position especially really well, because we don't have if Mason Mount can't stay healthy, we don't have a lot of players who can fit here, right? I think that this is obviously a position of question as well, right? Do we have, oh, look, it's the same guy. All right. Wait. There we go. All right. Yeah, there you go. Now nobody can get the attention he's craving. I think this is a question mark here. Ban evasion. Because we can't get anybody healthy for it, you know? Alphonso Davies would make loads of sense. Who else have we looked at? Alvaro Fernandez. He's a perfect fit for this, to just buy him back. It's a ready-made solution. You know, there was consideration about, okay, well, if we still had Ten Hag back for all of that, would we want to buy Alvaro Fernandez back, or would it make more sense to, you know, go from one of our other names we're interested in, Anthony Robinson? I think they'd still be good fits, but Alvaro Fernandez is perfect. He's perfect. You know, and so if I was to make, like, initial changes, we've got a buyback, so let's do this. Shit. Oh, yeah, it's Carreras on here, right? Why not? He's doing really well. Why not buy him back? He's doing well in the same league that we're getting the manager from. He's young, you know, all of that. It's cheap. It's the best value for money possible to make that buyback. And if he has a role that fits him right away, he's perfect for it. I think there's literally no reason not to get him in there. You know, and then I do think it's more likely, because we are playing in a tougher league, to be Dalot or Mazraoui. But I think Mazraoui would be better for this position, because I think he's better in the attacking thirds. But I think that this is, you know, if you were going to go into after January, I'd be happy if this was their starting 11, you know? And then based on how everybody performs in the summer, you look at where do you need more players. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get a better left wing back for that kind of money. How much is Valverde for right wing back? I have no idea. It makes a lot of sense. Mazraoui's really technical, really good, and he's better in the final thirds than Dalot, which is why I would like to see him play there. Dalot's, you know, but one thing I will say maybe will benefit Diogo Dalot now is if we stop using him as this, like, insane, weird, inverted, doing everything nonsense type of player, okay? I think he would stop falling apart if he got to play in a more regular role to develop there. Yeah, Anthony Robinson would be a very good fit too, and is quite good. But, you know, Alvaro's definitely younger and maybe could fit there as well. It might be 16 million. We don't actually know. The thing about him having to defend in that is that I've seen him defend well, but when he's having to, like, run across the entire pitch like a madman and into the front line to get back, then it makes no sense. Gutierrez as well is a good option, I think, for this type of position on the left as well. Yeah, Miguel Gutierrez would be another good option. Ait Nouri, we've seen, like, there was some articles that I think are total bullshit, by the way, but Ait Nouri is someone we've looked at as well. Yeah, he's a good attacking player in those positions. But that's why I say until we buy somebody, I can see wingers being there, and I think that's why Amorim has done it before. Like, people don't realize that, like, people don't necessarily realize that, and this is the point I keep trying to make, in Amorim's system, his fullbacks, his wingbacks probably do more than like anyone else on the team in building things up. And so it's I think you want some very, very competent attacking players in those positions. So yeah, that's how I see it. What about that German left wing back we looked at a couple years ago? Not sure if I remember. It looks like INEOS were signing up players. I don't think specifically for Amorim, but for this sort of newer, different style of player than we'd seen before. Yeah, but you need very technical players in these wide areas. They're going to be doing. And I have a video with Darnish I'll publish this afternoon, and he's got a lot of good pictures that show this, which I think is where it's helpful. And it shows these fullbacks these wingbacks are constantly in attacking areas, overlapping, over and over. And, and then, overlapping as well as hitting players through on the run and then running inside of them. There's a lot of different permutations to this. Yeah. And, and so I think that, it's exactly like there's a lot of managers that could have fit into this. Thomas Tuchel would have played this way if we'd asked him to. He's done it. Nagelsmann, Alonso, Amorim, there's a lot of managers that could have fit into this way of playing if this is the direction we wanted to go as a club, which is what it seemed like. Alvaro's sale was actually approved. If you think about it, the loan with the whole option, which once it's in there, you can't turn it down, was done by the Glazers beforehand. Is it fair to say that the midfield 4 in Amorim's 3-4-3 is similar to the midfield 4 in a 4-4-2? Actually, yes, and that was sort of my point of why, like when I say wing back, it's really just a wide midfielder like in a 4-4-2. It's not that different, so it doesn't nobody needs to get up in arms about putting wingers in those positions. You can. You really can. You really can. So no, I'm real excited about this though. I'm very, very excited about this. I think it's going to suit so many of our players, and I think there's a lot of different ways. That this could play out with the teams. I think there's a few nailed on spots, right? Like this trifecta here, I think makes perfect sense. Even this here, right? This whole kind of back five is really easy to pick. There's a lot more flexibility around and the striker. So it's kind of like this triangle, like this triangle right here of players is obvious how it's going to play and how it's going to play out. Because you've got Ugarte, Casemiro, Kobbie Mainoo, Mason Mount. There's not much place for Christian Eriksen for me, and I think that Karolinka said the same thing. There's not much place for Christian Eriksen because these guys have to work so hard, and we've been hanging out the other midfielder to dry by doing that. And yeah, so but we have options for each of these positions as well that can play in here. But this is the spine of the team. This Christmas tree here looks great. And then you have a lot more flexibility in picking these these 4 players for these inside forwards / wide players plus all of that. But it is interesting. I honestly, when I look at it now, I agree, Richie. Like if we use a few young players, which Amorim does a lot, I don't see that many signings we have to make, right? I don't see that many signings we have to make that's going to that are like this huge problem because it's very flexible. Like we need maybe more depth, and it really depends on performance. Outside of this left-sided position, I think that's the main thing that we would need. But again, yeah, how does Bruno fit? Sometimes like this, sometimes like this, and this is none of this is particularly unusual. But yes, you've got guys like Lacey. Oh God, I always get his name wrong, but Ibrahimov also fits it extremely well as one of these inside 10, inside forward types of things. And and there's a lot of them. Adam Wharton fits into one of these deep positions if we still want to pursue him. Again, Chris, there's Rigg, there's Hayden Hackney, there's some of these other young players where if Mount isn't going to be healthy, then we're gonna do it. Yes, I will do a watch along today. I might only be able to watch like 2/3 of it, but because I have an appointment afterwards, but we will at least watch some of it together and do all of that. The point of it is seeing how they play anyways, more than the result. But yeah, Amorim's also adjusted, but while he's very like stringent on how he sets up his team, he has adjusted year to year, where these players used to be wider, which opened up, I think, a lot of spaces for transitions. The fact that they're very narrow now and have really adopted the let you have the ball in these wide areas is better. We will need a center back. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. We will absolutely need a center back signing because we don't have enough of them that are fit and healthy and of the right age. That's why we wanted to get another one. We do need center backs because you've got like Maguire in here, but Lindelof will go. Johnny Evans is he can fit into this, but he's older. Maguire's on the wrong side of 30 as well. We need center backs. I think we need at least one or two. So I could very much see us signing one or two center backs and a left wing back as the priorities between summer and January, and then I think another deep midfielder, another midfielder type. I'm not quite sure yet exactly there. We'll see. And then I think a midfielder should be our priorities going into next season. And then you still could see us needing almost like a right winger to some degree. You could still see it. It depends on how Ahmad gets on in the system and all of that. But long term, we don't really have, like we have him in the youth ranks. So maybe the solution comes from there. But this is also a good position for like a Mastantuono that we've talked about, could play in this type of position as well. Or conversely, Nipan on the left side with more of a runner on the right side. The problem with Anthony is not that he can't fit the system. The problem is he's crap. That's why I don't put him in any of the things. It has nothing to do with his fit. He could fit into the system. He totally could. He's just bad. He's just bad. That's how I see it. It's kind of that simple. He's just bad. The Fletcher and all that could just play deep. Like that's why I don't really think there's anything worth talking about with Anthony. It's not his fit. He's actually, like, from a profile standpoint, there's a lot of teams he could fit into. He's not that different to Ahmad in some ways. He's just bad. I don't know. That's all I have to say about it. He's just bad. So his ball striking, his accuracy is just poor. And he's not physically up to task either. So you can't be both. He doesn't have the pace for the left wing back. He doesn't have the ability to pass, to do all sorts of things. So anyway, it's just not it for me. Yeah, Kone fits this deep role extremely well too. Extremely well too. So yeah, there's a hell of a lot in this. There's a hell of a lot in this that works for me. All right, so given that, we'll see how he lines up today. I understand profile-wise he's Nuno Santos, but he's crap. We already know he's not up to the level of the Premier League. That's the difference. When would Mantato getting a chance at fullback could work too? Yes, and that's where it's really interesting. We have so many good players coming through in this like next crop of youth that I'm like, a lot of these problems could be solved with the youth. Like a lot of the missing things could be solved with youth, but are they ready yet? I'm not sure. Now we still have a few aging players to let go, and that's why I think it's center back is where we need center back and maybe left back is where we need the most signings. So we won't know the sporting team until later to look at this and evaluate it, but we'll do that in the watch along. Let's do. So now we have an interesting thing here. Lenny's scheduled to return after the international break. That's the idea. Is it true that the summer transfers were done keeping a 3 center back manager in mind for the long term? I would argue that, again, when you look at the overall club decided style, there's a lot of admiration for 3 at the back appointments and managers who play in that similar style of play. So maybe not exactly, but similarly. I would make that argument, and I think it has there's a strong case for it. I think there is. I think there's a very, very strong case for it. All right, let's see. So now we have an interesting discussion because I want to talk about Chelsea, right? I want to talk about us going into Chelsea, and the question might be here: who are we going to pick? Because we played a kind of a 4-4-2, kind of. I mean, it wasn't that different to our usual setup, to be quite honest, but it was a 4-4-2. In its setup, at least initially. And then, however, now that Amorim's been announced, could Jason Wilcox loves a 3 at the back. Could they speak and pick a team that could we start to make this switch? Do we have the players for it yet? I totally agree. Playing Rashford out wide in this right mid is a total waste. And he's going to continue just kind of being poor there. Like, look, Rashford is a. I don't think he's that broad a player. I think he's very good at what he does, and putting him in that position doesn't really make sense. So yeah, I guess I'm curious to see: are we going to this week continue this 4-4-2, or now will we try to do something that fits a little bit more into, Amorim's system? Now, funnily enough, in my opinion, when I look at it, I was kind of pointing this out. When you build this 4-4-2 out, it takes like a really small adjustment and it kind of turns it into a 3 at the back anyway. But let's vote. What do you guys want to see? Like, what do you want to see? What do you want to see up top as like our strikers / 2 narrow forwards? What do you want to see up top here? Do you want to see Bruno Højlund, Bruno Xerxes, Xerxes, Højlund, Rashford, or Xerxes? And then I would do another. Let me put these 4 because I think these are the best options that we've got. I'm curious what you want to see here. What do you all want to see this? Make sure I didn't duplicate anything this time. I'm kind of inclined to that as well, DB Cooper. Like, whatever he thinks is best at this point, because it's a few games. We have good players. You don't want him to try to do something crazy that we're not ready for. I'd be inclined to agree that it's better to stick with a little bit in the short term what we have and what we do, because I doubt he can implement, much that way. As I am. Maz at 10? Yeah. Maybe we can put him up top. I should have put him in the partnership. Should I put him in the striking partnership? Bruno in the goalkeeper? This is a little bit close. I think the 2 options that are looking right now are the 2 best options. I think Xerxes, like, there was a lot of good moments here. Wow, it's really close between Rashford, Højlund, and Bruno Højlund right now. Really close. I think Xerxes doing a lot of good things, but I think he got better as the game went on the other day. But there's just something still lacking, you know? There's something still lacking. That report saying he was on the phone with someone in Moscow, yeah, with Lars or whatever his guy's name's in. Yeah. There's something lacking with Xerxes, and I don't totally know what it is. I don't totally get it. I would agree, E. Yeah, I would put Rashford up top, but you know. Xerxes, yeah, it's like it's confidence or something. He's lacking like that little extra edge of intensity that's just not there. But it's just slightly off, and I hope he builds into it. It's still early on. I hope he builds into it because there's certain things he does really well, but he you know, and it's like randomly you'll see him burst into speed, like when we're pressing sometimes when someone, there was like a couple moments where like Ugarte pushed up and made like a tackle, right? And the ball gets loose, and you see like this burst of energy from Xerxes, gets to the ball quickly and moves it. And you're like, okay, can you give me that, but like all the time? Can you give me that all the time? And then I would feel like, you know, that was it. And that would help. But it's just kind of lacking at times. Yeah, it just needs to and I think he can be really good too. I'm not giving up on him in the slightest. I think he's a really, really good player. He just needs the right job too, for sure as well. Like playing at the 9 with Mazraoui at the 10 was like so stupid. Even then he got an assist, you know, in 2 games in a row, I think. But yeah, I think we need to use him right. And for now, Højlund is definitely a better striker, but he could play like slightly behind him, you know, in a couple setups too. You know, I think there's a couple ways he could play slightly. He could play with Højlund, might be the ideal in a few things when we're settled in. And I know he can press. He did it for in Serie A as well. All right, I'm gonna give this like 20 more seconds. I've only let this go so long because it's basically dead even between 2 of the options. The moment Rashford Højlund gets in front, I should stop the count, right? That's how it works. Oh, back to Bruno Højlund. Oh, yeah. I think it's going to end up being Bruno Højlund, just ever so slightly over Rashford Højlund. Just ever so slightly. It was dead even for a minute, but all right, I'm going to do like 20 more seconds. Get your last votes in and make sure you vote for Rashford Højlund. No, it's going to end up being Bruno Højlund that win this one. It's because of those third-party candidates stealing votes. The third-party candidates are stealing votes from Rashford Højlund. Those spoilers. Those third-party spoilers. We got Gary Johnson over here messing up the count. Hanchko from PSV. Yeah, good point. Good point. All right, we're going to stop it here. That's fine. We can hit 150 votes. All right, so we'll go with this. Even though it was very close, within a few votes, we'll go with Bruno and Højlund up top. Okay. Let's go with the left wing. I still, for the life of me, am not understanding. Just swap them. Just swap them For the love of God, just swap them back. It would be so simple. Just swap them back. Please stop playing Rashford at right wing. Please. I know, the 4-4-2 often shifts into the 4-2-3-1. You are correct. The part that I don't like about it, though, is that it tends to keep the right side so wide. So wide. I will say that we've gotten now Mazraoui showing up on the left when he's come on the last couple of games, or when subs have been made, and that's an improvement, because I think he's definitely better on the left there. Yeah, I mean, look, there's players certainly from that Leverkusen team that you could think about now that make a lot of sense. All right, this one isn't as close. I'm going to end it there. And then and I'll plug it in. Let's do right wing. Do we want Garnacho or Ahmad? Wow. I thought Garnacho would be getting more votes because he's getting some goals recently, but I think people haven't been totally happy with his overall play. Mm-hmm. All right. Ahmad winning this one pretty strong. Rude wouldn't pick Ahmad versus Leicester. I don't think he'll start. Me neither, but I think it's going to be Garnacho for sure. But hey, what are you going to do? Boy, oh boy. Well, boy, some of those opinions. Wears socks with his shoes. That is a big upgrade. All right, so in the midfield, we really only have two choices here. Ugarte, Casemiro, Ugarte, Eriksen. And then I guess Eriksen, Casemiro. There's only one right answer. There's only one right answer. Kobbie Mainoo is not healthy yet, so this is for today. I mean, this is for this weekend, so nobody who's not fit is not going to be included in the votes. Coming up against Cole Palmer, he looked good at the. You're absolutely right. Cole Palmer would be incredible in that right inside forwards position, but he's on like a 12-year lifetime, signed his soul away contract. I feel like we don't know if Eriksen's injured for the next game. He missed the last one. He might be fit for the weekend. That's why I included him. We haven't had any updates on that. We also haven't got any training pictures this week. What's up with that? I understand you just sacked the manager, bro. Come on, give us some training pictures. I want to see the smiles on their faces. Time served at Chelsea Penitentiary. Exactly. Did they publish a training video this morning? How did I miss that? Okay, so they did publish them today. I was caught up in all the Amorim stuff. All this stuff always comes out while I'm sleeping, and then I miss out. But that's good. I'm glad there was some earlier. I didn't see like any of them. Ugh. All right, this is about as clear a win as ever, and I appreciate you all having the right answer. Well, almost all of you. Almost all of you. Do we have any options at the back? I guess we have Lindelof and stuff, but... Let's do the left back again and have everybody pick Mazraoui for left back, and we might actually start him there like he's been playing there the last few games. Reckon Shaw makes it back in time for Amorim? Maybe. Maybe. Yeah, Evans. Yeah, right. We do have Evans. Oh, I forgot. Wait, hold on. Hold on. Forget that poll for a second. Yeah. Now, I don't know if we'll do it with Lissandro now that we have Mazraoui, but here, let's do that. I want to include him in the poll. There are reports that Shaw Malacia hope to be fit for Ipswich. I keep remembering, you know, Ruben Amorim is actually our manager, officially. How incredible. Surreal. It is surreal. Ruben Amorim is actually our manager. Yeah, head coach, exactly. Good point. He's actually our head coach. He's our next appointment. He's the guy. Yeah, good point. No, but he has a sports scientist. He has a sports scientist who has a he has a good injury record over there and how he views things. You know, there's a paper published by the guy. So here's something really interesting. There's a paper published by the guy. Get his manager, or his like manager head coach is like, it's like getting the right like what pronouns, right, for the but for the person I got to start using that right. But there's like the guy he has, there's a sports scientist, has published an interesting paper, and one of the like conclusions that he reached was that one of the conclusions that he reached is that there was not really any difference in injury occurrences of soft tissue between fixture congestion and lack of fixture congestion, like when there's more fixtures versus fewer, because he says that in the times when there's fewer fixtures, when there's fewer games, the training intensity is ramped up in almost all instances. And so the obvious thing is, it's not about, you know, how many games versus not games. It's really simply the overall load on the players, right? So when your training is lower during high fixture congestion versus training higher during low fixture congestion, you see the same number of injuries. So ironically, at United, one of the things that we've done is, under Ten Hag, was even with high fixture congestion, we wouldn't ratchet down the training intensity. And, you know, these things like when we lose a game, doing extra training, so then you're tired for the next game. That's why we have injuries. You can't have high fixture congestion and we have the busiest schedule. We've had it for years, and do high intensity training. It has to be lowered. And his guy published a whole thing on that. So there's really no difference. A lot of fixtures, fewer fixtures. When you don't have a lot of games, that's when you ratchet the intensity up in training. That's why most managers do it over summer. You have incredibly intense training over summer. A lot of running over summer. That's when you work on fitness. But when the fixtures are intense, you don't. Especially for the players who are playing, of course, and then having individual fitness plans and things like that. So I suspect we will see a dramatic improvement in there. Okay. So we got Mazraoui. We'll go with Delict. We'll go like Evans, Delict. I don't know. Lindelof. Delict. There. Let's just do that. Because I feel like it's got to be Delict in one way or another, right? I think Rene Hake will go. I think that's pretty much certain. Georgeson has a chance of saying, as I feel like they wanted somebody on the staff that's more of their appointment, and Jason Wilcox picked him out particularly. And then Ruud will speak to Amorim. I said that earlier in the week. He confirmed that himself. Ruud will speak to Amorim and decide what he wants to do and see if there's a place for him in the team. Wasn't that one of the first things Amorim fixed with Sporting? I remember someone saying about how he reduced injuries by 27%. Probably. I mean, look, there's you never know. You never know, but they have an obvious philosophy, at least, of reducing training when you're having more games, which makes logical sense. So I don't think we're going to see punitive training regimens anymore, which is a crazy thing. All right, Lisandro Delict wins this one like every time quite easily. That means Dallo, and that means Onana. So that's the team we're voting for. Not that different to the team we vote for every week, frankly. So overloaded with Amorim videos. Yeah, I know. I've gotten nothing done this whole week in my real life and job because of this, but it's been fun. But look, I mean, the thing about it is what's funny is you have this 4-4-2. It was a bit of the same 4-2-3-1, but in moments it was 4-4-2. We set up a block of 4-4-2. And when you look at it, this is not that dissimilar to how you could line up in a this is not that dissimilar to how you could look at it in like a 3-2-5. Mad to think how much training we did, yet there looked like there was none. I know. But this hardworking 2 is pretty much what's going to be at the center of Amorim's tactics. Does Amorim rotate a lot? It seems like it. I mean, when we looked at the game against Nacional during the week, the cup game there, they were pretty heavily rotated. And they made 3 halftime substitutions to change the game and to not to change it, but to build upon what they were doing. So, yeah, so he does rotate. He has shown very much a willingness to rotate. He really does like to use youth and get them in as part of these rotations as well. So I'm confident he will continue. One thing that is an important part of United and building with the youth. And we have some good players coming through. So hopefully we see a lot of that. But in game, it's really easy to see this, moving into a little bit of a 3-4-3 anyway, right? If we were to play it right, probably not like that. But, this is not that dissimilar to what we could see out of an Amorim lineup anyway. And it takes one tiny rotation. That's the funny part. Like, it takes such a small rotation of just pushing the fullback up and wide, pushing Rashford up and in, and you can do it the other way as well, right? But it is funny. Like, it's such a small thing that could change, that could make this look the same way. And that's why I'm quite curious, because you can go the same way the other side. And you could do this. And then it's the same thing. It's a small rotation around. And that's why formations are like, whatever, right? But the biggest thing that I think works is this midfield. 2 hardworking midfielders who can stay in the center, cover the middle of the pitch, and push the ball out wide. even in our 4-4-2 that works. You know, when Solskjaer got sacked and Carrick came in, he did the same thing. He played with a compact middle and a little bit of a more mid-block, flat block. And we looked a lot better in those few games, and that's why we didn't lose any games, and that's why we were winning good games. And it's kind of similar, you know, like we had a group game, we had a game against Arsenal and another one, and we pulled it off. And so maybe Ruud can do the same thing and pull off some good games for us by doing it, just being more compact. Now, I honestly didn't think the team was that different. I didn't think that we played that different at all. End of the day with Ruud, the biggest difference was the simplicity of picking a really good, solid, compact, hardworking midfield that actually suit each other. That freed up Casemiro to go into the kind of attacking role. And even that would happen a lot under Amorim, where with two hard workers, one of them has more license to get forward, and they can do so without it being so dangerous on the counter. We'll see how it goes against Chelsea, but yeah, I'm very encouraged by this as well. There was a bit more movement. There was a little bit of differences, but I put most of it down to the midfield being more compact, being more controlled, winning the ball in better positions. I think was a lot of that. I think I think it was in that respect, it made the game a little simpler, right? Because you didn't have it going. I'm just saying, again, people take this always as like a dislike of Eriksen, but it's not. We didn't have Eriksen sitting deep, like in this like more complicated playmaking role, I guess, and not doing the work off the ball. So there was a little more simplicity, I think, in how we played with these two midfielders, and I think it will be a little more simple with how we played. In terms of them finishing, yeah, I mean, look, one of them is obviously Casemiro. Not that he gets that many shots. That banger right in the beginning. Beyond that, Garnacho finished that same exact goal against Brentford. So it's not like it was like suddenly finishing. He's always better as a finisher when he doesn't have too much time to think. Because when he off the dribble, all of that, his finishing is usually poor. As a more instinctive finisher, he tends to finish well. So I don't think it's like this crazy like thing. And then Casemiro's other one was from 2 yards out off of a set piece. Bruno's was off of a set piece, and then a very lucky deflection off of a free kick. So I don't think the finishing was like this sudden, stunning, like, oh, the players are now trying more. You know, Casemiro's first goal for me was probably the only one that was like, okay, yeah, we haven't been scoring that goal. Beyond that, we just dominated territory and made better chances. I mean, look at where our shots were coming from. Look at where the goals came from. Even Bruno's lucky free kick, but right in front of the box. And it was lucky. It was a big deflection. So it wasn't like the finishing was suddenly better. It was a lucky deflection. We've scored off of set pieces a number of times this year. And Casemiro is very good at them. Again, the other one with Bruno, literally 2 yards away. It's not like his finishing was suddenly better. He was more composed than usual. So there's like one goal to me that's like, oh yeah, that's a goal we have not been scoring this year, which was Casemiro's, incredible hit. So I don't see this big like, oh, suddenly everybody's like totally different. I think there's a little more relaxed, a little more freedom, but a lot of that was just coming down to the midfield being set up in a way that suits everybody. To me, that simple. So, all right, well, that's the team y'all voted for. I'm going to end this now. I'm going to publish the tactics video with Darnish in about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Sancho won't play because he's on loan, either way. And then I think it's at 4:15 Eastern. Maybe is it 9 or 10 o'clock UK? I don't know because the time hasn't changed here yet till tomorrow. I'll do the watch along for the sporting game, at least for like an hour and a little. Okay, so we can at least get to see some of it before I got to run to do something. Okay, so thanks for hanging out today. Again, it's been a good week. It's been a fun week. Started the week with Ten Hag gone. We ending the week with a new appointment. Pretty good, pretty decisive from INEOS. Pretty excellent on that front. Very, very happy and satisfied with them doing what they need to do. So thanks for hanging out with me. It's been another long one. Got an hour and 40 minutes. These just keep going longer. I don't even realize it. So, yes, see you all later. Have a good weekend. And then obviously Sunday, watch along for Chelsea. So hope to see you there as well. And I will do a post match after that one too. Okay. Have a good one. See you later. The mustache explanation is in the first 5 minutes if you want to know. See you later.